Hello, guys. Tonight, we're slowing things down. No kings, no battles, no plague pits. Just the quiet rhythm of a world long gone. Welcome to another journey through the quieter corridors of history. But before we begin, take a second to like the video and subscribe, only if you genuinely enjoy these kinds of slow, reflective deep dives. And let me know in the comments, where are you tuning in from and what time is it for you? It's always humbling to know this little window into the past is being opened by people all over the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe make yourself a warm drink, put your phone away if you can. Let the noise of modern life fade into the background. Because tonight, we're stepping into a simpler time. No electricity, no rush, no notifications. Tonight, you are a medieval peasant. You live by the sun, the soil, and the seasons. Your world is small, just a cottage, a field, and a village of 30 souls. But it is enough. We'll rise with you at dawn. Feel the earth beneath your bare feet. Hear the rooster's call echo through the misty morning. We'll walk the fields, tend the garden, share a humble meal, and rest under a thatched roof that creaks softly in the wind. There is no glory in this life, but there is rhythm. There is no luxury, but there is meaning. So breathe in, slow down, and let's begin. Your day in the 14th century starts now. The church stands at the center of the village, its stone walls rising above the humble cottages. The bell tower marks the hours of the day and calls the faithful to prayer. The churchyard surrounds the building, its graves marked by simple wooden crosses or rough stone markers. This is where generations of villagers have been laid to rest, their bones mingling with the earth they worked in life. The seasons shape everything in this world. Summer brings long days of hard work under the sun, when the fields must be tended and the harvest gathered. Winter means shorter days and longer nights, when families huddle around their fires and tell stories to pass the time. Spring arrives with hope and new growth, while autumn brings the satisfaction of work completed and stores laid up for the cold months ahead. Our peasant knows every stone in the village paths, every tree in the surrounding woods. This small corner of the world is their entire universe, as familiar as their own hand. They have walked these paths since childhood, helped tend these fields since they were old enough to carry water to the workers. The rhythms of this place are written in their bones. The first light of dawn filters through the small window of the cottage, a pale gray glow that gradually brightens to soft gold. Our peasant stirs on their bed of straw, covered by a rough woolen blanket that has been mended many times. The air inside the cottage is cold, carrying the scent of wood smoke from the banked fire and the earthy smell of the dirt floor. Rising is a gradual process. There is no sudden alarm, no urgent need to leap from bed. Instead, our peasant stretches slowly, feeling the stiffness in joints that have known hard work for many years. They listen to the sounds of the village waking up around them. A dog barks in the distance. Chickens cluck and scratch in their pens. Somewhere, a woman is already at work, the soft thud of her grinding grain carrying through the still air. The cottage is dim and cool. A small fire smolders in the central hearth, providing the only light apart from what filters through the window opening. Our peasant slides their feet into wooden clogs and pulls a rough tunic over their head. The clothing is practical and durable, made to last through seasons of hard work. Colors are muted, browns and grays that hide the stains of daily labor. The first task of the day is to tend the fire. Our peasant kneels beside the hearth and breathes gently on the glowing embers, adding small twigs and bits of dried grass until flames begin to dance. The fire is precious, never allowed to die completely. To lose the fire would mean the difficult task of borrowing coals from a neighbor or creating new flame with flint and steel. Water must be fetched from the well in the center of the village. Our peasant takes up a wooden bucket and steps outside into the fresh morning air. The sky is pale blue now, touched with pink along the eastern horizon. Dew covers the grass and sparkles on spider webs stretched between the fence posts. The air smells of growing things, of earth and leaves, and the faint scent of wood smoke from other cottages. The walk to the well is quiet and peaceful. Other villagers are beginning their day as well, moving slowly through their morning routines. A woman feeds her chickens, scattering grain from her apron while the birds cluster around her feet. An old man examines his vegetable garden, checking for signs of pests or disease. Children peer from doorways, not yet fully awake, but curious about the stirring world around them. At the well, our peasant draws up the bucket on its rope, watching the water splash and swirl in the wooden container. The water is cold and clean, tasting of stone and earth. They drink deeply, feeling the coolness slide down their throat, then fill their bucket to carry home. The weight of the full bucket pulls at their shoulder, but this is a familiar burden, carried twice each day for as long as they can remember. Back at the cottage, the fire has grown stronger. Our peasant sets a pot of water over the flames and adds a handful of oats, stirring the mixture with a wooden spoon. This will be breakfast, a simple porridge that will provide strength for the morning's work. While the porridge cooks, they step outside to tend the small garden behind the house. The garden is their pride and their necessity. Here grow the vegetables that will supplement the family's diet throughout the year. Onions and leeks, cabbage and turnips, herbs for flavoring and healing. Each plant is known individually, tended with care and attention. Our peasant moves among the rows, pulling weeds and checking for insects, their hands gentle but sure as they work. A few chickens peck and scratch in a small pen beside the garden. These birds are valuable, providing eggs and occasionally meat for special occasions. Our peasant scatters a handful of grain for them, watching as they cluster and compete for the food. One hen has made her nest in a corner of the pen, sitting protectively on her eggs. Soon there will be chicks, adding to the small flock. The sun climbs higher, painting the cottage walls with golden light. Smoke rises straight up from chimneys throughout the village, white columns against the blue sky. The day is warming, promising good weather for the work ahead. Our peasant returns to the cottage, where the porridge is now thick and ready to eat. Breakfast is eaten slowly, without hurry. The porridge is plain but filling, sweetened with a little honey when it can be spared. Our peasant sits on a wooden stool beside the fire, holding the bowl in their hands and feeling the warmth seep through the clay. This quiet meal is a moment of peace before the day's labor begins in earnest. As the sun rises higher, it is time to join the other villagers in the fields. Our peasant gathers the tools they will need for the day's work. A wooden-handled hoe, its iron blade worn smooth by years of use. A sickle for cutting grain, its curved edge carefully sharpened. A leather bag for carrying seeds or gathering weeds. These tools are precious, inherited from parents or carefully crafted by the village blacksmith. The walk to the fields takes our peasant through the heart of the village. The narrow paths wind between cottages and gardens, past the church with its solid stone walls, and the manor house where the Lord lives when he visits. Children play in the dirt roads, rolling hoops or chasing each other with wooden swords. Women sit in doorways, spinning wool or mending clothes while they watch their children and exchange news with their neighbors. The fields stretch away from the village in long, narrow strips. Each family works their assigned portions, following the rhythm of planting and harvesting that has been established for generations. The system is ancient and efficient, ensuring that everyone has fair access to both good land and poor, that no family is left without the means to feed themselves. Our peasant strips are scattered throughout the field system, some in the valley where the soil is rich and dark, others on the hillsides where the ground is stony and harder to work. This dispersal is intentional, spreading both the risks and benefits of farming across the community. In a good year, everyone prospers together. In a bad year, everyone suffers together. The work begins slowly, methodically. If it is spring, our peasant joins others in preparing the soil for planting. The earth must be broken and turned, the clods smoothed and the weeds removed. The plow is shared among several families, pulled by oxen that belong to the community. Our peasant walks behind the plow, guiding it through the furrows and breaking up the larger clumps of earth with their hoe. The work is steady and rhythmic. Step by step, row by row, the field is prepared. There is satisfaction in this labor, in seeing the rough ground transformed into neat furrows ready for seed. The other workers move at the same pace, their tools rising and falling in a pattern as old as agriculture itself. Conversations flow easily, neighbors sharing news and gossip as they work. If it is summer, the work is different but equally demanding. The crops must be tended, weeds pulled, and pests discouraged. Our peasant moves through the rows of growing grain, checking each plant for signs of disease or damage. The wheat is beginning to turn golden, its heavy heads nodding in the breeze. Soon it will be time for harvest, the busiest and most crucial time of the year. The sun climbs higher, and the work continues. Our peasant's back aches from bending over the crops, but the pain is familiar and bearable. Their hands are stained with earth and plant juices, their clothes dusty from the dry soil. Sweat beads on their forehead, but the work must go on. The fields demand constant attention if they are to yield the grain that will feed the village through the winter. At midday, the workers pause for a brief rest. They gather in the shade of a large oak tree that stands at the edge of the field, sharing bread and ale from the jugs they have brought from home. The bread is dark and coarse, made from barley and rye, but it tastes good after the morning's labor. The ale is weak but refreshing, safer to drink than water from uncertain sources. The conversation during this rest is quiet and comfortable. The villagers speak of their work, their families, the weather, and the prospects for the harvest. They share concerns about sick animals or damaged crops, offer advice about remedies and techniques. This is their classroom and their parliament, where knowledge is passed from older workers to younger ones, where decisions about the community's work are made by consensus. Children appear at the edge of the field, bringing fresh water or messages from the village. They play quietly nearby, careful not to interfere with the work, but eager to be part of the adult world. Some of the older children work alongside their parents, learning the skills they will need for their own future. A boy leads a team of oxen while his father guides the plow. A girl helps her mother gather stones from a newly prepared field. The rest ends and the work resumes. The afternoon stretches ahead, hours of steady labor under the warming sun. Our peasant returns to their section of the field, taking up their tools and continuing where they left off. The rhythm of the work is hypnotic, almost meditative. Hoe and rest, step and turn, pull and toss. The weeds pile up in neat rows to be gathered later for compost or animal feed. As the afternoon wears on, our peasants' thoughts turn to the evening's tasks. There will be animals to tend, meals to prepare, small repairs to make around the cottage. The garden will need watering if the day remains dry. The chickens must be secured against foxes and other night hunters. These domestic tasks are just as important as the field work, requiring the same careful attention and steady effort. The sun begins to sink toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air cools slightly, bringing relief from the heat of the day. Our peasant straightens their back and surveys the work that has been accomplished. Several rows have been cleared of weeds, the soil loosened around the growing plants. It is good work, honest work, that will contribute to the community's well-being. The tools are cleaned and gathered, ready to be carried home. Our peasant joins the stream of workers heading back toward the village, their shadows growing longer as they walk. The day's labor is ending, but there are still tasks to be completed before rest can come. This is the pattern of their life, work blending seamlessly into more work, each task necessary and important in its own way. Back in the village, smoke begins to rise from cooking fires as families prepare their evening meals. Children are called in from their play, their voices carrying across the settling dusk. Dogs bark and chickens settle in their roosts. The day is winding down, but it is not yet finished. Our peasant returns to their cottage and immediately tends to the animals. The chickens must be fed and watered, their pen checked for signs of predators or damage. The eggs are collected carefully, each one precious for the nutrition it provides. A pig roots in its small enclosure, grunting contentedly as it searches for scraps and fallen grain. This animal represents wealth and security, its eventual slaughter providing meat to last through the winter months. The garden requires attention as well. In the dry weather, the vegetables must be watered, each plant receiving its share of the precious liquid. Our peasant moves methodically through the rows, carrying water from the cottage and pouring it carefully around the roots of each plant. The herbs release their fragrance into the evening air, basil and thyme, sage and parsley, each one contributing to the family's health and the flavor of their simple meals. Inside the cottage, preparations for the evening meal begin. Our peasant builds up the fire and sets a pot of water to boil. Into this goes whatever vegetables are available from the garden, along with a precious piece of bacon or a handful of barley. The resulting stew will be simple but nourishing, flavored with herbs and thickened with whatever grain can be spared. While the stew cooks, our peasant tends to the small tasks that keep the household running. A wooden bowl that has cracked must be mended with pitch and binding. A tear in a tunic requires careful stitching with thread spun from the family's own sheep. These repairs are done by the light of the fire, fingers working surely despite the dim illumination. The evening meal is eaten slowly, savored after the long day's work. The stew is hot and filling, the bread still warm from the morning's baking. Our peasant sits on their wooden stool, holding the clay bowl and feeling grateful for this simple abundance. Outside, the sounds of the village settling for the night can be heard. A cow lows in a nearby pen. A child calls for their mother. Somewhere, a man is singing quietly to himself as he finishes his evening chores. After the meal, there is a brief time for rest and reflection. Our peasant sits beside the fire, watching the flames dance and feeling the warmth on their face. This is one of the few quiet moments in the day, a time when the urgent demands of work and survival can be set aside for a little while. The cottage is peaceful, filled with the soft sounds of the dying fire and the distant night sounds from outside. But even this rest is not idle. Our peasant's hands continue to work, spinning wool into thread or mending torn clothing. These tasks can be done by feel, requiring little attention, leaving the mind free to wander or simply to enjoy the peace of the evening. The work is meditative, the repetitive motions soothing after the more demanding labor of the day. As full darkness falls, our peasant makes the final preparations for sleep. The fire is banked carefully, covered with ash to preserve the coals until morning. The door is barred against intruders, though the village is generally safe and peaceful. A final check is made of the animals, ensuring that all are secure for the night. The bed is simple but comfortable, a mattress of straw covered with rough linen sheets and woolen blankets. Our peasant removes their outer clothes and lies down gratefully, feeling the day's fatigue settle into their bones. The cottage is dark now, except for the faint glow of the banked fire. Outside, the village sleeps under the star-filled sky. But the peasant's day is not complete without acknowledging the spiritual dimension of their existence. Before sleep comes, there are prayers to be said, gratitude to be expressed for the day's blessings, and protection to be sought for the night ahead. The prayers are simple and heartfelt, learned in childhood and repeated throughout life. They provide comfort and connection to something larger than the immediate concerns of daily survival. The medieval peasants' religionship was woven into every aspect of their existence. The church bell marked the hours of their day, calling them to prayer at dawn, noon, and evening. Sunday was set aside for worship and rest, a break from the endless cycle of work that defined the other 6 days of the week. The church calendar determined the rhythm of their year, with feast days and fast days, times of celebration and times of penance. Our peasant knows the stories of the saints by heart, tales of holy men and women who performed miracles and interceded for ordinary people like themselves. Saint Christopher protects travelers. Saint Anthony finds lost objects. Saint Francis loves animals and the poor. These saints are as real and present as the neighbors next door, ready to help those who call upon them with sincere hearts. The church building itself is the most impressive structure in the village. Its stone walls and wooden roof represent centuries of community effort and devotion. Inside, the walls are painted with scenes from the Bible, colorful illustrations that teach and inspire those who cannot read. The altar is simple but dignified, adorned with candles and cloth that represent the finest work the village women can produce. Sunday Mass is the highlight of the week, a time when the entire community gathers together for worship and fellowship. Our peasant joins their neighbors in the familiar rituals, responding to the priest's Latin words with phrases learned by heart. The music is simple but beautiful, voices raised together in ancient hymns that connect them to Christians throughout the world and across the centuries. The priest is an educated man, one of the few in the village who can read and write. He serves not only as spiritual guide, but also as teacher and counselor. When disputes arise between neighbors, he helps to mediate. When someone is sick or dying, he provides comfort and the sacraments. When children are born, he baptizes them into the Christian community. His presence gives dignity and meaning to the major events of life. Religious festivals mark the turning of the seasons and provide breaks from the routine of daily work. Christmas brings joy and feasting in the depths of winter. Easter celebrates new life in the spring. Harvest festivals give thanks for the year's bounty. These celebrations involve the entire community, with special foods, games, and entertainment that create memories to last throughout the year. But religion for the medieval peasant is not limited to formal observances. It permeates daily life in countless small ways. A prayer is said before each meal, thanking God for the food and asking blessing on those who prepared it. The sign of the cross is made before beginning any important task, seeking divine protection and guidance. Holy water is sprinkled on sick animals, and blessed herbs are hung in the cottage to ward off evil influences. Superstitions blend seamlessly with orthodox belief, creating a worldview that sees God's hand in every aspect of existence. Thunder is the voice of God expressing displeasure. Lightning is a sign of divine power. A good harvest is a blessing, while crop failure is a punishment for sin. This understanding gives meaning to both fortune and misfortune, placing every event within a larger cosmic framework. The peasants' prayers are practical and immediate. They ask for good weather for the crops, health for their family, protection from disease and disaster. They give thanks for daily bread, for the roof over their heads, for the community that sustains them. These prayers are not philosophical abstractions, but urgent communications with a God who cares about the details of human life. Death is ever present in this world, never far from consciousness. Life expectancy is short, and disease can strike without warning. Our peasant has attended many funerals, said goodbye to family members and friends who died young. This familiarity with mortality gives urgency to spiritual concerns and makes the promise of eternal life intensely meaningful. The afterlife is understood in vivid, concrete terms. Heaven is a place of eternal rest and joy, where the faithful will be reunited with loved ones and freed from the burdens of earthly existence. Hell is equally real, a place of punishment for those who die unrepentant. Purgatory offers hope for those who die with minor sins, a temporary state where souls can be purified through the prayers of the living. This understanding of death and judgment influences every decision our peasant makes. They strive to live according to Christian teaching, to be honest in their dealings, charitable to their neighbors, faithful in their religious observances. They know that their eternal destiny depends on their earthly choices, and this knowledge provides both comfort and motivation. The cycle of the church year provides structure and meaning to the passage of time. Advent prepares for Christmas with fasting and prayer. Lent leads to Easter through 40 days of penance and self-denial. The long season after Pentecost is filled with saints' days and local celebrations. Each period has its own character, its own requirements and rewards. Our peasant participates fully in this cycle, adapting their daily routine to match the church's requirements. During Lent, they eat no meat and limit other foods as much as their hard physical labor will allow. On feast days, they wear their best clothes and join in community celebrations. Fast days are observed with prayer and abstinence, preparing the soul for spiritual blessings. The village church serves more than a place of worship. It is the community center, where announcements are made, disputes settled, and business conducted. The church yard is where markets are held and festivals celebrated. The church building itself serves as refuge in times of danger, its thick walls providing protection when raiders threaten the village. But for our peasant, the most important aspect of religion is its personal dimension. In the quiet moments before sleep, In the brief pauses during the day's work, in times of crisis and celebration, they turn to God with simple trust and faith. This relationship provides strength for daily challenges, hope for the future, and meaning for a life that might otherwise seem limited and hard. As sleep approaches, our peasant finds comfort in familiar prayers and trusted promises. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and opportunities, but tonight there is peace in knowing that they are held in God's care. The stars shine down on the sleeping village, the same stars that have watched over countless generations of believers. In this continuity, our peasant finds security and rest. The seasons turn in their eternal cycle, and the medieval peasant's life follows their rhythm with precise regularity. Spring brings hope and renewal, the time when the earth awakens from winter's sleep and new life begins to stir. Our peasant feels this awakening, the lifting of winter's gloom and the anticipation of the growing season ahead. In spring, the work begins early and continues late. Fields that have lain fallow through the winter must be prepared for planting. Our peasant joins their neighbors in the community's shared labor, everyone working together to ensure that the planting is completed at the optimal time. The soil must be broken and turned, weeds cleared, and the ground prepared to receive the precious seed grain. The spring planting is one of the most crucial times of the year. Too early, and the seeds may be killed by late frost. Too late, and the growing season will be shortened, reducing the eventual harvest. Our peasant watches the weather carefully, looking for signs that the time is right. When the soil feels warm to the touch and the danger of hard frost has passed, the planting begins. Each seed is precious, representing not only the work required to plant and tend it, but also the hope for future food security. Our peasant carries the seeds in a cloth bag, walking slowly through the furrows and dropping the grain at careful intervals. Behind them comes another worker with a hoe, covering the seeds with earth and smoothing the surface. This partnership ensures that every seed has the best possible chance to grow. Spring is also the time when the village animals give birth to their young. Calves, lambs, and piglets are born in quick succession, adding to the community's wealth and security. Our peasant helps with these births when needed, their experience and gentle hands bringing new life safely into the world. Each healthy animal represents food, clothing, and tools for the future. The spring weather is changeable and unpredictable. Warm, sunny days are followed by cold rain that can damage tender young plants. Our peasant watches the sky constantly, looking for signs of approaching storms. When bad weather threatens, they work quickly to protect what they can, covering vulnerable plants or moving young animals to shelter. But spring also brings joy and celebration. After the long months of winter confinement, it is good to be outside again, to feel the sun on their face and the soft earth beneath their feet. The world is green and fresh, filled with the songs of returning birds and the scent of growing things. Our peasant takes pleasure in these simple beauties, finding renewal in the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. As spring turns to summer, the pace of work intensifies. The young plants must be tended constantly, weeds pulled before they can compete with the grain, and pests discouraged before they can damage the crop. Our peasant spends long days in the fields, moving slowly through the rows and checking each plant individually. This careful attention can mean the difference between abundance and hunger in the months ahead. Summer brings the longest days of the year, when work can continue from dawn until well past sunset. Our peasant rises early and works late, making the most of the available light. The physical demands are enormous, but there is satisfaction in seeing the grain grow tall and strong, the promise of harvest visible in every healthy stalk.
The summer heat can be oppressive, making the work even more challenging. Our peasant drinks frequently from jugs of weak ale or water flavored with herbs, trying to stay hydrated while maintaining the steady pace of work. Rest periods are taken in whatever shade can be found, brief respites from the sun's burning rays.
But summer also brings its own pleasures. The long evenings are filled with community activities, times when the day's work is done, but darkness has not yet fallen. Children play in the village streets, while adults sit outside their cottages, enjoying the cool air and each other's company. Stories are told, songs are sung, and news is shared in these relaxed gatherings. The summer nights are short and pleasant, filled with the sounds of insects and the gentle rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Our peasant sleeps lightly, awakened often by the sounds of the night, but comfortable in the warm air. The cottage door can be left open for ventilation, and the heavy winter bedding is stored away until it is needed again. As summer reaches its peak, thoughts turn to the approaching harvest. Our peasant examines the grain carefully, looking for signs that it is ripening properly. The stalks should be golden, the heads heavy with grain, the individual kernels hard and plump. When these conditions are met, the harvest can begin. The harvest is the most important and intense period of the entire year. Everything depends on gathering the grain quickly and efficiently before weather or pests can damage the crop. Our peasant joins with the entire community in this crucial work, everyone contributing their strength and skill to the common effort. The harvest begins at dawn and continues until darkness makes further work impossible. Our peasant moves through the field with a sharp sickle, cutting the grain stalks close to the ground and laying them in neat rows to dry. Behind them come other workers who gather the cut grain into bundles and tie them securely. The work is backbreaking but essential, requiring both speed and care to ensure that none of the precious grain is lost. When the grain is cut and bundled, it must be transported to the village for threshing. Our peasant helps load the heavy bundles onto ox-drawn carts, their muscles straining under the weight. The procession of loaded carts moving from field to village is a satisfying sight, visible proof of the community's successful labor. The threshing floor is a smooth, hard surface where the grain is separated from the stalks. Our peasant joins the line of workers who beat the bundles with wooden flails, their movements synchronized to avoid injury. The grain falls free, leaving the straw to be gathered for animal bedding and other uses. This work continues for days until every bundle has been processed and every kernel recovered. As autumn arrives, the character of the work changes once again. The urgency of harvest gives way to the methodical tasks of preparation for winter. Our peasant helps with the community's efforts to preserve food, repair buildings, and gather fuel for the cold months ahead. Apple orchards are harvested, vegetables are stored in root cellars, and animals are slaughtered for meat that will be salted or smoked for preservation. Autumn is also a time for celebration, when the community gathers to give thanks for the year's harvest. Harvest festivals combine religious observance with social festivity, featuring special foods, music, and entertainment. Our peasant participates fully in these celebrations, enjoying the rare opportunity for leisure and fellowship. The autumn weather is crisp and clear, perfect for the outdoor work that must be completed before winter arrives. Our peasant spends long days gathering firewood, repairing thatch roofs, and winterizing the cottage and animal shelters. Every task is important, as inadequate preparation can mean hardship or even death during the harsh winter months. As the days grow shorter and the nights longer, our peasant's thoughts turn inward. The frantic pace of summer gives way to a more contemplative rhythm. There is still work to be done, but it is quieter work, done by firelight in the warmth of the cottage. Spinning, weaving, mending, and crafting occupy the long winter evenings. Winter brings its own harsh beauty to the village. Snow covers the fields and cottages, creating a world of pristine white, broken only by the dark lines of bare trees and the smoke rising from chimneys. Our peasant ventures outside only when necessary, hurrying through their chores and returning quickly to the warmth of the cottage. The winter diet is simple and monotonous, based on preserved foods and stored grain. Our peasant eats porridge and bread, supplemented by small amounts of preserved meat and stored vegetables. Fresh food is rare and precious, limited to eggs from the chickens and milk from cows that are still producing. But there is contentment in this simplicity, satisfaction in knowing that their careful preparation has provided adequate sustenance. The long winter nights are filled with quiet activities. Our peasant sits by the fire, working on tasks that can be done by feel in the dim light. Stories are told and retold, passing down the accumulated wisdom and entertainment of generations. Religious observances provide structure and meaning to the darkest months, with Christmas bringing joy and light to the depths of winter. As winter slowly gives way to spring, our peasant feels the ancient stirring of hope and renewal. The cycle begins again, as it has for countless generations before and will for countless generations to come. In this continuity there is comfort and meaning, a sense of being part of something larger and more enduring than any individual life. The medieval peasant's existence was marked by this profound connection to natural cycles and community rhythms. Their life was hard by modern standards, filled with physical labor and constant uncertainty. But it was also rich in ways that our modern world sometimes lacks. They knew their place in the world, understood their role in the community, and found meaning in the simple acts of daily survival. Our peasant lived with a deep awareness of their dependence on others and on forces beyond their control. The weather, the soil, the seasons, and the community all played crucial roles in determining their fate. This understanding fostered humility and cooperation, virtues that were essential for survival in their harsh world. The pace of their life was dictated by natural rhythms rather than artificial schedules. They worked when work was needed, rested when rest was possible, and accepted the limitations imposed by darkness, weather, and season. This harmony with natural cycles created a different relationship with time, one that was less hurried but perhaps more sustainable.
Their social connections were intense and enduring. Our peasant knew everyone in their village, shared in their joys and sorrows, cooperated in their work, and celebrated in their festivities. These relationships were not chosen, but given, creating a web of mutual obligation and support that sustained individuals through difficult times. The medieval peasants' relationship with the land was intimate and respectful. They understood the soil's needs, worked with rather than against natural processes, and saw themselves as caretakers rather than masters of the earth. This perspective fostered sustainability and conservation, ensuring that the land would continue to support future generations. Their spiritual life was integrated seamlessly with their daily existence. Prayer and work, faith and survival, hope and hardship were all part of a single reality. This integration provided meaning and comfort, placing even the most mundane activities within a larger cosmic framework. As we reflect on the life of our medieval peasant, we might ask ourselves what lessons their existence offers for our own time. In our fast-paced, disconnected modern world, There is something appealing about their deep roots, their strong communities, and their acceptance of natural rhythms. While we would not want to return to their hardships and limitations, we might benefit from recapturing some of their values and perspectives. The peasants' patience and persistence in the face of challenges, their willingness to work for long-term benefits rather than immediate gratification, their understanding of interdependence and mutual support, these qualities remain relevant and valuable. Their integration of work and meaning, their respect for the natural world, their commitment to community, these too offer guidance for contemporary life. In the end, our medieval peasant lived with dignity and purpose within the constraints of their time and place. They found satisfaction in honest work, meaning in simple faith, and joy in community fellowship. Their life reminds us that human fulfillment does not depend on material abundance or technological sophistication, but on the eternal human needs for purpose, connection, and hope. As we imagine our peasant settling into sleep at the end of their long day, we can picture them feeling the deep satisfaction that comes from work well done, challenges met with courage, and a life lived in harmony with both nature and community. Tomorrow will bring its own tasks and difficulties, but tonight there is peace in knowing that they have played their part in the great human story of survival, cooperation, and hope. The fire burns low in the cottage hearth, casting gentle shadows on the walls. Outside, the village sleeps under the vast canopy of stars that have watched over countless generations of hard-working people who found meaning in the simple rhythm of their days. The medieval peasant's world was one of profound interconnection, where every action rippled through the community, and every season brought its own necessities and gifts. Their daily routine was shaped not by the artificial demands of modern life, but by the ancient requirements of survival and the eternal cycles of growth and rest, work and worship, effort and reward.
In their small cottage, surrounded by the familiar sounds of night, our peasant represents millions of ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives of quiet heroism. They faced each day with courage and determination, meeting its challenges with whatever strength they possessed. They worked not for fame or fortune, but for the simple satisfaction of providing for their families and contributing to their community's well-being. Their tools were simple but effective, their methods tested by generations of use. The wooden plow that broke the soil, the sharp sickle that cut the grain, the spinning wheel that turned wool into thread. These implements were extensions of human hands and human will, bridges between intention and accomplishment. Each tool was valued and cared for, repaired when broken, passed down from parent to child like precious heirlooms. The peasants' diet was plain but wholesome, based on foods they had grown or raised themselves. Bread from grain they had planted and harvested, vegetables from gardens they had tended, milk from cows they had fed and watered. This direct connection between work and sustenance created a profound appreciation for food, an understanding of its true value that went far beyond mere taste or convenience. Their clothing was practical and durable, made to last through seasons of hard wear. The rough wool tunic that protected them from cold and thorns, the leather boots that kept their feet dry, the woolen cloak that shed rain and snow, each garment was carefully maintained, mended when torn, and worn until it could serve no longer. Nothing was wasted, nothing discarded carelessly. The peasant's home was modest but comfortable, adapted to the climate and built with local materials. The thick walls that provided insulation, the slanted roof that shed rain, the central hearth that warmed the living space, every feature served a purpose, contributing to the family's comfort and safety. The cottage was more than shelter, it was the center of domestic life,
the place where meals were shared, stories told, and children raised. Their social world was small but intense, bounded by the village limits but rich in human connection. Our peasant knew intimately the character and circumstances of every neighbor, shared in their celebrations and sorrows, cooperated in their work, and depended on their support. These relationships were not casual or temporary, but lifelong bonds that created a network of mutual obligation and care. The peasant's leisure time was limited but precious, filled with activities that brought both pleasure and purpose. The evening gatherings where stories were shared and songs were sung. The festival days when normal work was suspended and the community came together in celebration. The quiet moments by the fire when hands worked at spinning or mending while minds rested from the day's labors. Their spiritual life provided both comfort and guidance, offering meaning that transcended the immediate concerns of daily survival. The prayers that began and ended each day, the weekly participation in communal worship, the seasonal celebrations that marked the turning of the year, all of these created a framework of significance that elevated even the most ordinary activities. In their small cottage, surrounded by the familiar sounds of night, our peasant represents millions of ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives of quiet heroism. They faced each day with courage and determination, meeting its challenges with whatever strength they possessed. They worked not for fame or fortune, but for the simple satisfaction of providing for their families and contributing to their community's well-being. Their tools were simple but effective, their methods tested by generations of use. The wooden plow that broke the soil, the sharp sickle that cut the grain, the spinning wheel that turned wool into thread. These implements were extensions of human hands and human will, bridges between intention and accomplishment. Each tool was valued and cared for, repaired when broken, passed down from parent to child like precious heirlooms. The peasant's diet was plain but wholesome, based on foods they had grown or raised themselves. Bread from grain they had planted and harvested, vegetables from gardens they had tended, milk from cows they had fed and watered. This direct connection between work and sustenance created a profound appreciation for food, an understanding of its true value that went far beyond mere taste or convenience. Their clothing was practical and durable, made to last through seasons of hard wear. The rough wool tunic that protected them from cold and thorns, the leather boots that kept their feet dry, the woolen cloak that shed rain and snow, each garment was carefully maintained, mended when torn, and worn until it could serve no longer. Nothing was wasted, nothing discarded carelessly. The peasant's home was modest but comfortable, adapted to the climate and built with local materials. The thick walls that provided insulation, the slanted roof that shed rain, the central hearth that warmed the living space, every feature served a purpose, contributing to the family's comfort and safety. The cottage was more than shelter. It was the center of domestic life, the place where meals were shared, stories told, and children raised. Their social world was small but intense, bounded by the village limits but rich in human connection. Our peasant knew intimately the character and circumstances of every neighbor, shared in their celebrations and sorrows, cooperated in their work, and depended on their support. These relationships were not casual or temporary, but lifelong bonds that created a network of mutual obligation and care. The peasant's leisure time was limited but precious, filled with activities that brought both pleasure and purpose. The evening gatherings where stories were shared and songs were sung. The festival days when normal work was suspended and the community came together in celebration. The quiet moments by the fire when hands worked at spinning or mending while minds rested from the day's labors.
Their spiritual life provided both comfort and guidance, offering meaning that transcended the immediate concerns of daily survival. The prayers that began and ended each day, the weekly participation in communal worship, the seasonal celebrations that marked the turning of the year, all of these created a framework of significance that elevated even the most ordinary activities.
The peasants' relationship with authority was complex but generally accepted. They understood their place in the social hierarchy, fulfilled their obligations to lord and king, and found security in the stability that this system provided. While they had little political power, they possessed the dignity that comes from honest work and the respect that comes from fulfilling one's duties faithfully. Their education was practical rather than academic, passed down through demonstration and repetition rather than books and formal instruction. Our peasant learned to read the weather, to judge the quality of soil, to recognize the signs of plant disease or animal illness. They mastered the countless skills needed for survival in their challenging world, from animal husbandry to food preservation, from construction to textile production. The peasant's relationship with nature was one of partnership rather than domination. They worked with natural cycles rather than against them, understood their dependence on forces beyond their control, and developed practices that sustained the land's productivity over generations. This ecological wisdom, born of necessity and refined by experience, created a sustainable way of life that modern society is struggling to rediscover. Their understanding of time was cyclical rather than linear, shaped by the recurring patterns of seasons and generations rather than the abstract divisions of clocks and calendars. They lived in harmony with these natural rhythms, working when work was needed, resting when rest was possible, and accepting the limitations imposed by darkness and weather. The peasant's concept of wealth was different from ours, based on security rather than accumulation, on sufficiency rather than excess. They measured prosperity not by what they owned, but by what they could depend on: a good harvest, healthy animals, strong relationships, and a roof that didn't leak. This perspective fostered contentment and gratitude, qualities that brought happiness despite material limitations. Their approach to problem-solving was collaborative and conservative, relying on collective wisdom and proven methods rather than individual innovation. When challenges arose, the community worked together to find solutions, drawing on the accumulated experience of generations. This approach ensured stability and continuity, though it sometimes slowed adaptation to changing circumstances. The peasant's sense of identity was deeply rooted in place and community, in the landscape they knew intimately and the people they lived among. They belonged to their village in a way that modern people often struggle to understand, connected to both land and community by bonds that were practical, emotional, and spiritual. This rootedness provided security and meaning, though it also limited mobility and opportunity. Their daily rhythm was shaped by the sun's course across the sky, rising with dawn and settling with dusk in harmony with natural light. This alignment with circadian rhythms promoted health and well-being, creating a sustainable pattern of activity and rest that supported both physical and mental health. The peasant's moral framework was clear and stable, based on teachings that had been passed down through generations and reinforced by community expectations. They understood the difference between right and wrong, honored their commitments, and strived to live according to principles that promoted social harmony and individual virtue. Their relationship with death was more intimate and accepting than ours, shaped by the constant presence of mortality in their world. They understood that life was fragile and precious, that death could come suddenly and without warning. This awareness gave urgency to their spiritual concerns and poignancy to their daily joys. The peasants' legacy was not measured in monuments or written records, but in the children they raised, the land they improved, and the traditions they preserved. Each generation built upon the work of those who came before, adding their own contributions to the ongoing story of human survival and flourishing. As we imagine our peasant in their final moments of wakefulness, we can picture them feeling a deep sense of completion and continuity. They have lived as their ancestors lived, facing the same challenges and finding the same solutions, participating in the eternal human drama of survival and hope. Their life has meaning not because it was unique, but because it was part of something larger and more enduring than individual existence. The sounds of the night settle around the cottage, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, the soft breathing of sleeping animals. These sounds are familiar and comforting, part of the acoustic landscape that has surrounded human dwellings for countless generations. In this continuity, our peasant finds peace and security. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and opportunities, its own mixture of work and rest, difficulty and satisfaction. The sun will rise again, calling our peasant to another day of honest labor. The seasons will continue their eternal dance, bringing spring's hope and summer's abundance, autumn's harvest and winter's rest. The community will continue its ancient patterns of cooperation and mutual support. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of the cottage, our peasant rests in the knowledge that they have played their part well. They have worked honestly, loved faithfully, and contributed to the ongoing story of human civilization. Their life may seem small and insignificant by modern standards, but it was lived with dignity and purpose, grounded in values that remain relevant and important. The medieval peasant's world was harsh but meaningful, limited but rich in human connection, challenging but sustainable. As we reflect on their existence, we are reminded that human fulfillment does not depend on material abundance or technological sophistication, but on the eternal human needs for purpose, community, and hope. In their simple but profound way of life, we find lessons that remain valuable and inspiring, reminders of what it means to live with dignity and grace in an uncertain world. The fire settles into glowing embers, the cottage grows quiet, and our peasant drifts toward sleep, carried by the gentle rhythm of their breathing and the deep satisfaction of a day well lived. In this peaceful ending, we find our own rest, comforted by the knowledge that human life, however humble, can be filled with meaning and purpose when lived in harmony with nature, community, and the eternal rhythms that govern all existence.